Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Annette. How are you?
Recording in progress.
Hi, Annette.
Hi, Carrie.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing all right.
I just wanted to let everybody know before we started that I'm in Canada and I have like really bad service. So I'm hoping to make it through the whole meeting. So I'm on vacation, but I
That's a
I
big
felt
thing.
I felt like I didn't want to miss the first meeting. Obviously, wouldn't be a good thing.
That's amazing.
Totally understand.
Yep. I drove a half an hour to get a signal just to make this come. So I'm in my car.
What part of Canada?
I'm in Cape Breton.
Oh,
So it's actually 8 o'clock
nice.
here. Yeah, I'm so far
Oh.
east. It's 8 o'clock. About 13 hours away.
Oh, gee, that's quite a distance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we come here every year with my family's vacation. So my wife has family up here. But I didn't turn on my video because I'm in my car right now.
Okay.
Folks are used to seeing me in my car. Not that you
Are
have
they?
to turn on your camera, but I just have to admit that
Yeah.
I've never been that far away, but I certainly have been at
Right.
meetings in my car. Kevin's got the Northern Lights going, so.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
really?
forgot I had this on. It surprised me.
Oh, there you go.
mm.
Are we waiting? For a reason?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
just
don't-
want to make sure.
I think we probably should get started. I think we have a quorum. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Okay, so why don't why don't we get started? I'll call the uh, Board of Health meeting to order. And we usually do our roll call, so we can go ahead and do that. I'm Rick Lopez. Joan,
Wetzel?
Joan, state your name. Oh, Joan,
I'm sorry, the video,
Kevin?
the audio is dropping out.
Yeah, I had the audio dropping up too.
Kevin, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Jerry,
Yep, Jerry Kramer here.
Sophie,
Sophie Hansen here.
Carrie,
Carrie Donnell here.
Sal.
Sal Bramante here.
Great. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Sal and Sophie to their first meeting.
Thank you.
I thought it would be maybe a good idea for us to just go around briefly and just let Sal and Sophie know, and then we'll hear from Sal and Sophie. You know, what your current sort of professional background is, how long you've lived in Reading, how long you've been on the Board of Health. So starting with myself, Rick Lopez, I'm a retired physician internist for the last 6 years. I practiced primary care, and I also did some administrative executive work. I've lived in Reading for 3 years, actually this month, and I've been on the board since 2020. So Joan, do you want to give us some background?
Hi. Yeah, sure. I'm a med tech, a retired med tech. I worked in labs for 40 years. I was involved primarily in microbiology, reading cultures. I've lived in Reading for 44 years. And as I think I've already said, I'm currently retired.
Great. And you've been on the board 2 months.
Just a couple months.
Yep. Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Sexton. Been on the board for, that's a good question. Pre-COVID, we'll call it. I forget, I think it's 5 years, maybe, it's going on 6. I'm a real being part of the selectmen on this in this town before, so that's where I come in and where my qualities come from.
Great. Jerry.
I am Jerry Kramer. I have lived in Reading for 10 years. Background as a nurse, but I work in health economics for a medical device company now. I think I've been on the board 3 or 4 years. I don't remember. Maybe.
Okay. And Carrie.
Oh,
Oh.
here I am. Sorry, I didn't realize that my camera wasn't on. I turn off selfie, so I hadn't noticed. I thought it was. Okay, anyways. Hi, Carrie Janelle. I have been on the board since July of 2020. I have lived in Reading for 23 years. We moved in on September 6, 2001. Lots of stuff that goes with that. I have worked, but I've worked in, I worked in small business, and then I worked in a mutual fund company for a while, but for the last 20 plus years, I've worked in public health, working at the local level, working in forming regions to support emergency preparedness activities, working in regions to form the forum mutual aid agreements among public health, and working to support the development of the shared services arrangements that Reading is one of the folks that are in that. And I was a manager of the local public health training institute for a few years, still creating workforce trainings. And I've been fortunate enough actually to work on grants, so worked nationally on a couple of demonstration projects for emergency communication with public health, and get to maintain my relationships with folks and keep up with what's happening around the country in public health, and bring that to my work as well. So currently I am managing a shared service arrangement and a training hub. The shared service arrangement is 4 communities. The training hub is 43 communities. And yeah, I love public health. I fell into it by accident. I love it. I haven't left yet.
Great. Thank you, Carrie.
All right.
Sal,
My
you want
name
to
is,
give us
My name is Ade Solari. I'm the health director for the town of Reading. I've been the director for 3 years. Prior to this, I was the director in Danvers, Oak Bluffs, and I was the deputy director in Somerville. I've been in the field of public health for approximately 16, 17 years. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you.
Great. Sal, do you want to just give us a brief couple words on your background and years in Reading and so forth?
Sure. So I guess my term started July 1st in the Board of Health. I've been in Reading about 35 years. I have 4 kids, one that's already through the school system, 3 more that are in there. Actually, 2 that are out, sorry, and 2 that are still in school system. I have a background in food safety, bioterrorism. I've dealt with, FDA, USDC, HACCP since I've been 17 years old, so approximately 30 years, 33 years. I've owned restaurants, food processing facilities, and I guess that's about it, really.
Great. Welcome. Sophie. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
So I'm Sophie. I'm newer to Reading. So my husband and I moved, it'll be 2 years in December of this year. So we're pretty new, but I've been in Massachusetts my whole life. My background is social work. So I am a social worker, been a social worker for about 8 years. I've held a whole litany of positions. I'm still doing clinical social work on an outpatient basis as a therapist. I work in a local pediatric hospital. Bet you can guess which one, in the emergency department. And then full-time, I do government relations for a nonprofit. And I've also taught policy courses to graduate social work students. So really excited to be here and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna proceed on the agenda. So just a quick review. We'll be approving the minutes from the last couple meetings. We'll have some time for public comment. Then we're going to review and vote on the intermunicipal agreement for the Public Health Excellence Grant. And I believe we have Annette Garcia here for that, and we'll introduce her, let Aday introduce her when we get to that point. I think there's an update on the ongoing issue at 601 Haverhill Street. And then we're going to have a discussion about what are the next steps on our community health improvement plan. Then we have to do a reorganization per the town charter once a year in terms of voting for chair and vice chair. Aday will give his usual monthly update and we'll wrap it up. So in terms of the minutes from May 23rd, were there any edits or changes on those minutes? So not seeing anybody raise hands, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 23rd. Do I have a second?
Second.
Carrie, second. Okay, roll call. Joan,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
and Rick. Yes. So the minutes are approved. Then we had another set of minutes from June 13th, our last usual meeting. Again, any edits, changes? Our previous board member, Paula Curran, always had some edits to do. So, but no edits. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 13th. Again, roll call. Joan?
Yes.
Seconded.
Kevin?
Yes, I seconded that motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. We didn't get a second. That's right. Carrie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and Sal.
Yes.
Okay. No, so those minutes are approved. Okay, in terms of public comment, I don't know if there's anybody here who wants to make a public comment. I see Nancy McAllister I don't recognize, but you know, if you want to make a comment, feel free. Otherwise, we'll move
That's
on.
601 Haverhill.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Good.
Okay, so moving on to the intermunicipal agreement. So I'm going to let Aday kick this off and introduce Annette and the discussion.
All right, so I'm just gonna give a brief overview and then turn it over to Annette. So the Massachusetts Department of Public Health supports and funds the development of intermunicipal shared services agreements between towns and cities across the state. The Middlesex Essex Public Health Collaborative was formed in 2023 as a result of this, and the purpose is to increase cross-jurisdictional sharing of public health services to strengthen services delivery to local public health departments. Reading is part of this collaborative, which is the Middlesex Essex Public Health Collaborative. And we do it in conjunction with communities nearby, including North Andover, North Reading, Haverhill, and Plainfield. So this program requires that each shared service agreement execute an intermunicipal agreement for continued grant funding. In other words, this agreement needs to be executed so that we can get the next set of funding. Annette is the shared services coordinator for our collaborative. She oversees the grant and the day-to-day operations of the collaborative. She's here with us today to give us a brief outline of what the MEPHC does and how, the town of Reading benefits from the collaborative and what the importance of the IMA is. All right, Annette.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Aday. Thank you all for having me. I know I've met a few of you before, but I'm excited to meet the rest of the board as well today. And like Aday said, just kind of give a little overview for what our collaborative has been up to so far, talk a little bit about the IMA, and then I'm here to answer any questions that you all have had about the IMA. So I think Aday went over most of what I was going to go over of kind of where we started, but I want to talk a little bit about what we do as a whole. So the collaborative hosts a few different regional positions. So one is myself. While I do mostly grant management, I've also been helping out with some inspectional services for our member communities. We also employ a part-time public health nurse who started with us in January and has been helping with disease investigation, health programming for our communities, blood pressure clinics. And then actually just on Monday, we hired a full-time regional health inspector who's going to be helping out with inspectional services within our communities. So we're really happy to have her on board. We also provide an array of program management and project management for our communities. So we've been working on some things related to food safety and FDA standardization within our communities. That's been a really great project, and thinking about ways that we can improve our collaboration across the region to ensure that we're providing adequate public health services to our populations. So specifically in Reading, some of the things that we've been able to help with, Leanne Perot, who is our public health nurse, has started doing monthly blood pressure clinics along with the senior center. So she's gotten a pretty good attendance of regular folks that are coming to get blood pressure screenings once a month. We also were able to assist with summer camp permitting and pool inspections this summer. So that was really great to be able to meet some of the camp operators and go through the inspection and permitting process with them. Just this week, we had our regional inspector go out and investigate some foodborne illness, some food-related complaints. So she was able to go out and investigate those and work with the various establishments to address those. And then we also can help cover some training costs. I know some of the board members have taken advantage of that, and we are sending Aday to the MHOA conference in the fall. So we've been able to use the funds to help support that and in any continuing professional development. So a lot of good things going on. And then a little bit about the IMA. So I know Aday touched on it, but executing an intermunicipal agreement is a condition of this grant. So it's required for us to continue to get funding. And essentially what the IMA is doing is it's outlining what our governance structure is going to look like, establishing clear responsibilities for the host community who's North Andover. So what are their legal responsibilities in terms of liability for shared staff, the program management that they're undertaking to help make sure that we're adhering to all of the grant guidelines, and there's that internal support. from the community. And then it's also talking about what our member community's responsibilities are. So what's their participation responsibility in our advisory board? You know, if there's any financial responsibility, which we don't foresee, but it outlines in that rare exception if there happens to be any financial responsibility for the towns, what are the procedures that we have to go through for addressing that with each community. And then it also outlines if the community chooses to leave the collaborative, what's the process for that? So it really helps outline all of those legal structures. So each community within the collaborative has a clear understanding of what they're agreeing to and just sets those guidelines. So that's really like the big quick overview. And then next in the process is we have to bring this forth to each of the community's Board of Health and Select Board to review and then vote to approve on and sign on to. So that's what we're here today, is to see if we can get your vote for approval to adopt this intermunicipal agreement to set that structure for our collaborative. But I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have about the IMA specifically, or just our collaborative in general, since I'm here.
So, sorry, do you want us to share the IMA on the screen? Because
I
we
would
can.
love that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
'Cause I'm kind of not familiar with it, obviously.
Rick, if I may, I have a question, clarifying question.
Go ahead. Yep.
And I know that because I am also a grant manager for a similar arrangement. This agreement is not a while it addresses specifics to the communities that are part of this arrangement. This agreement is based on a template that any shared service arrangement needs to sign on to, right? It's not a custom job. It's not that someone else wrote it up and that there are specific, you know, special clauses that we would put in. It was, I think it was created with support from Mass Association of Health Boards. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we did use the template that Mass Association of Health Boards created. There were a few like minor edits that the town of North Andover has made, and then we've had a number of meetings with each of the individual town councils to look this over and get their approval before we put it before the Board of Health. But you're exactly right, Carrie. It's not custom made for our collaborative. A lot of the other collaboratives are using this same template as well.
It's a I mean, that's one of the things that I think is helpful when we're talking about these kinds of arrangements, because you really want the arrangements to be similar. It's much like a mutual aid agreement. It's not mutual if it's not the same agreement among each community, and it really it doesn't serve well if there are special rules of how things happen only in
Right. Yeah.
a little pocket of 4 communities. You know, you really want the shared services agreements to be, you know, following kind of the same procedures and same requirements. And certainly receiving grant funds from the state, we have to do that anyways, but the IMA isn't a special deal. So I really like that aspect of this. Thanks.
So it's not it's pretty standardized is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any comments from town council from any of the communities that were particularly notable in that? Or was it, you know, fairly routine?
Yeah, I don't think there was one point where we had some questions over the liability in terms of the shared staff. That kind of the initial version that North Andover had presented, some of the communities had some concerns about it. So they ended up actually removing that language to go back to the original language that everybody was comfortable originally with. But for the most part, it was all pretty standard language. Nobody had any major concerns over it.
Right. That's good.
Minor tweaks, where to put a comma, that type of thing.
They're
Oh,
always
so,
on.
That's what I was going to ask. What were the changes? But they weren't. Could you tell us what the changes were that they asked for?
Yeah, it was very minor. So mostly kind of language. I would say one of the bigger changes that we had was in terms of our advisory board. The original language indicated that it was just a regular majority. We included a participation clause to that. So, based on the IMA, each community is required to be there once every quarter. We added a clause that says if a community doesn't show up within a quarter, they lose their vote until they're no longer a voting member until they show up again. So that has really helped us with participation in terms of not slowing things down. It helps us ensure that we're meeting a quorum with every meeting. And then as soon as that community shows up to another meeting, they're brought back to being a voting member. So it's really helped us kind of address that. And I would say that's probably the only big change that we made to the template.
That makes sense. But that was what North End. You said North Andover asked for some specific changes. What were those?
They had asked for some changes about in terms of sharing of liability coverage. Those changes are not in this version. We reverted back to the original template of how liability is taken care of. And that's just the host community. North Andover covers liability for the shared staff. We already fall under there. So shared staff are all town of North Andover employees, and we already fall under their insurance policy with Maya. So it wasn't really needed language. So that was their major edit, and we actually removed that from this final version.
Okay, thank you. If I asked the same question, somebody else just asked. Sorry, but that was just
Oh, no.
kind of clear.
Happy
Thank
to
you.
clarify. It was the most confusing part of all this. So
And that what you describe in that standard where the liability rests with the host community and the shared, that's consistent with how other intermunicipal agreements that share staff are arranged, and it's also consistent with mutual aid agreements. So it's much like any mutual aid. If fire were to go out from mutual aid to another community, they remain the employee of the town of Reading, even though they might be operating in another community. So we're consistent, is what.
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I had a couple questions. One is, who is our alternate? Maybe this is for a day or for Annette. Who is the alternate from Reading to the advisory committee? Or have we not decided that yet?
At this point, we haven't.
So
Okay.
Go ahead,
That's
Annette.
something that we could.
I was just going to say, yeah, most of our communities haven't identified that yet because we haven't adopted the IMA. But once it's in place, that's certainly up to each community. I know some of our communities, they have their admin. When they're small staffs, if they have an assistant director, they may send them. But just to make sure you don't feel like you're not doing something, nobody yet has identified their alternate. That certainly, once this is fully approved, we'll make sure to do that for everybody.
Okay, great. And then B, there a sort of long list of potential positions, shared services coordinator for administration, for management, 3 different inspectors, 4 different public health nurses. I mean, and is this sort of like a Chinese menu we can pick, these positions? Because as we've talked with Ade about it, I think we were thinking besides the couple administrative roles, there was an inspector that would be shared across the 6 communities and a public health nurse. So there was only, maybe 4 positions. Is that, so am I reading Exhibit B as just the options available? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So they're not necessarily different positions, but potential roles those positions could fill. And so it's really just to outline, and it was put in as an exhibit so we can continue to expand on it as roles expand or we decide we want to hire additional roles. So it's not that there's 3 different inspectors, it's one inspector that can fill all of those different roles potentially. So you're exactly right. Currently, we're thinking about the one regional inspector, the one regional public health nurse, and then myself are the roles. So it's just kind of like outlining, helping further define what exactly those shared responsibilities are, and having as an exhibit makes it a lot easier for us to update as we kind of continue to grow and establish as a collaborative.
Okay.
And in the
And in
future,
terms of,
if
Go ahead.
we make the case for additional staffing, we would have the opportunity to do that. We can get like an epidemiologist or somebody else to join us, but at this point, it's just those 3 positions.
okay. So maybe before Carrie, I had a couple other questions. In terms of the funding, is the funding pretty flat, 200 and something thousand dollars every year? Is that for 3 years? Is that the plan?
Yeah, so we just entered this July, this fiscal year, into a 3-year contract that is saying we're going to be level funded for the next 3 years. And we have actually been upped. So last year, our funding was increased, and it's actually, I have the number here, $532,544 is our annual grant funding, and that is over the annually for the next 3 years. We're kind of locked into that amount, and then we'll see how the program progresses forward for the state. One of our goals this year as well is to do some strategic planning to think about what type of outside funding we can secure to help ensure the longevity of our grant, expand what kind of services we're able to offer. But at least for the next 3 years, that's the amount that we're locked into.
Okay. And lastly, at some point in the past few months, there was some question as to whether North Reading was going to continue to participate. Are they going to continue? Is that
They
resolved?
are.
Or because obviously they're listed in the. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so they have decided to continue
are
to
continuing.
participate. Their select board actually voted a few weeks ago and signed on, and they have their Board of Health meeting coming up to sign on to the IMA. I think it was just one particular project that they hadn't really bought into, and so they just decided that they weren't going to participate in that particular project, but they still wanted to take advantage of some of the other resources. I know our public health services, our public health nursing services have been really helpful in North Reading. So they do plan to continue on and support and engage in the grant.
Right. Yes, Carrie, you had a question?
Yeah, I don't know if others do, I don't have to go, but I did have a couple follow-ups. If others have questions.
We could take the agreement down from the screen if we could do that, Cassidy. So I can't see everybody when the agreement's up. Perfect. Okay, so any other comments, questions? And we'll go back to Carrie. You had a comment or question?
Yeah, I just, I noticed one thing I wanted to ask about, Annette. So I have three questions. First is, I noticed on the term that the term of the agreement is 3 years, and that is, I noted, is different. I mean, a standard IMA is typically a term of 25 years as permitted by statute. I note that our agreement is a 3-year term only, but it still includes the language saying unless otherwise permitted by statute. Can you explain how maybe we arrived at that?
Yeah, so the North Andover Town Council wasn't comfortable with a 25-year agreement. I think they had, when we were drafting the IMA, they had some reservations about taking on the host community role, particularly where this grant isn't promised for 25 years. So they felt more comfortable having this IMA be the same term as our current contract for the grant. So that at the end of that 3-year grant cycle, we can kind of take a look at the collaborative, see how it's been working with North Andover serving as the host community, and then reassess this IMA at that point to see if, everybody wants to continue as is, or if there need to be some restructuring or changes to it.
Interesting.
We don't want to end up like Lawrence and Methuen.
Well, I mean, you have I don't want to quibble on it. I mean, the statute permits 25 years. There's advantages to that because it keeps folks kind of locked in and in a long-term commitment of, yes, we wish to collaborate with each other and we want to support each other. And that's the goal. Well, that's one of the goals of these programs, is to provide stability and enhanced regional public health services. So I was just surprised to note that that they did it. I understand sure, you can tie it to the term of your money if you want to. That's fine.
I think the idea is after 3 years we can then go for 25 years once everybody's fine.
Oh, got it. Yeah, got it. Okay. And then Annette, I know that so I said one of the purposes of this is to provide stability and enhance regional public health services. I know too that part of this is tied to achievement of performance standards. Can you tell me where we are as a region in terms of meeting the performance standards? And is the work plan tied directly towards achieving improvement on those?
Yeah, definitely. So, to say, unfortunately, we don't have a great baseline of where we are on the performance standards. So we did get a capacity assessment toolkit similar to all the other SSAs that kind of outlined how our communities are currently meeting those performance standards that were set forth. Due to the timing of when our collaborative joined, we had a really small window of when we could submit all of our documentation and responses for the capacity assessment. So we don't have full results as to, all of our communities providing that documentation. I can certainly say anecdotally, our communities do a really great job, especially around our public health nurse is currently pulling numbers for MAVEN responses, so responses to communicable diseases, and our communities do a great job with that. Within our work plan, we do have a plan to do a self-assessment when it comes to those standards. So one of our goals this year is to really take a deeper dive ourselves to look at how well we're meeting those performance standards, so we have a better baseline understanding of where we're starting out at. And so I think, this is our first full year as a collaborative that's fully staffed, that we're able to really kind of put our feet down and do some strategic planning. So now that we have that staff infrastructure in place, it's certainly built in every aspect of our work plan to make sure that we're working towards those, and also coming up with a great way that we can track that progress and achievement. So we're able to have some really qualitative data to say, this is how much we improved in this performance standard. And it's going to help us in future work plans as well to really hone in on what are those areas that we can improve in.
Great. That's great. And I would love to, I would love it if we could perhaps have Annette come back at a future meeting and talk about what, once those self-assessments by the communities have been completed, kind of talk about what is that baseline and where are the focuses of work. I think that's really interesting info. And then I just want to say the last thing is that, this is a 3-year contract, and that is, it's an incredible luxury, actually, as a grantee from the states. Typically, our federal and state grants are annual, and you have to reapply for funding every year. So I think it's a wonderful thing that we're able to participate in something that has that kind of support from the state and from the legislature, that gives the stability, stability for all of the staff working on it. I've been grant funded for 18 of the 20 years that I've worked in public health. I'm used to it, but it is difficult. It's it makes it hard to hire folks, and it makes folks who are newer to it, makes folks a little uncomfortable. So I'm really excited that we talk about this as a 3-year thing. This is I know we're talking a lot about this. This is a really important step, and the work that's going to occur under these intermunicipal agreements is a huge advance in improving public health services for all of the 51 that exist, and hopefully across the state. And part of it is so that, Kevin, there won't be things like with COVID when the Board of Health was having to meet every day for a while, and then every other day, and then every week. There'll be a stronger bench and capacity of professional staff and understanding of needs that boards of health like us can rely on. So I am really excited about this work, and not just because I'm doing it. I'm excited myself. I'm excited about it because it really is the work that needs to happen. But I want to underscore, not everybody understands, grant funding and that 1 year thing. Although I saw a couple head nods, it's a big deal. So thank you for the work on that. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the patience with my questions. And I'll stop.
Happy to.
I just want to say that I'm extremely grateful that we are part of this collaborative, because they've been very instrumental to the survival of our department. As you all know, we don't have a health inspector and we don't have a nurse, and they've been able to, fill in the gaps for us. I really, appreciate them doing that for us.
Absolutely.
Sal, you had your hand up at one point. Do you have a
Yeah,
question?
Kerry covered most of my questions, so I'm all set.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. No, it was good.
Yeah, from my perspective, this is sort of like motherhood and apple pie. I mean, how could one see something negative where it's furthering the vision of more collaborative public health systems in the state instead of 351 separate entities? The state is giving us money to help provide us resources that we need, in particular in Reading. As Ade pointed out, we desperately need them at this moment. And so if there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the IMA, from the Board of Health.
I guess I just had one last question. Was what
Sure.
is the financial responsibility for Reading? Like, does a grant cover all of it, or does Reading have to pay something?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the grant covers everything. I work really closely with the state to make sure that any potential charges are covered by the grant. When I mentioned it in terms of the IMA, there's just a clause in there that says, let's say if the grant funding disappears, we just set forth guidelines for when we would have to approach the towns with a possible financial financial responsibility if they wanted to maintain the collaborative, and that would have to go through your typical appropriation process. So currently there's no financial responsibility for any of the communities. It just outlines, in the case that the grant doesn't exist, there's that option and timeline written in there that we could entertain local municipalities paying in to maintain the collaborative.
Okay, so we wouldn't be approving any finances from the town right now. We'd just be approving the IMA. Okay.
Correct, yes.
Correct.
That
And
answers my question.
what she just mentioned is optional. It's not mandatory for us to continue if the grant dries.
Right. Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Again, can I entertain a motion to approve the IMA for Reading? Carrie?
Sure.
You're on mute, but I see your hand. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Okay. Roll call. Joan?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Sal?
Yes.
And Rick? Yes. So the IMA is approved. And I will sign for the board on that. And it's going to the select board at some point in the next 4 weeks, I believe, Ade, right?
Yes, so tentatively it will be before the select board on August 27th. It's not finalized at this point, but we're waiting to hear back.
Okay, great. thanks, Annette, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Great.
Annette.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. It was
Thank
great
you.
to meet you
Thank
all, see
you.
you all, and I look forward to joining future meetings.
Thanks,
Great,
Annette.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, moving on to 601 Haverhill. Aday, maybe you can, for Sal and Sophie's sake, you can just give a 2-second background and then introduce the issue.
Absolutely. So 601 Haverhill Street in Reading, there was a fire last October. We conducted an inspection and found multiple violations that needed to be corrected. The owner, Mr. McAllister, appeared before the board during the November Board of Health meeting to request a modification of compliance time due to several reasons, including, insurance issues and liability issues, the inability to secure reputable contractors in a timely manner. And the board granted an extension of compliance time until May 1st, 2024. And then Mr. McAllister came back before the board in March to request additional time because, they still weren't able to meet the May 1st, 2024 deadline. The board granted an extension, a 7-month extension till December 31st. And at this point, it appears that they won't be able to meet the deadline for December 31st. And Mr. McAllister is here to request additional time for compliance. Mr. McAllister, could you go ahead and state your name and
I'm Doug McAllister, and as Aday said, I've been before the board a few times. And I think more the issue the last time or the time before is not that we didn't have anybody, it's just it takes a long time to rebuild the whole house. Basically, when I was here to talk to you the last time, we had the house down to studs. We had looked at all the mold issues and those were remitted. And now the contractor was starting to work on things like the plumbing, the electrical, the insulation. And while he's doing that, he's keeping in touch with the building department and everybody that we need to. He got his certifications and stuff. And currently, we're at the point where the plumbing and the electrical rough, that's not having the appliances and stuff hooked up, is all done. It's been reviewed, been looked over. The insulation is done. That's been reviewed. It's meets the code. There's a lot of new code because the house goes back to like 1953, 55. We had to do some reinforcing, which wasn't required then, but was required now. We've got the walls in now, the walls and the ceilings in as of this week, and they're starting to do skim coat. We're not looking for an extension past December. We just agreed that we'd take this stop and come in August and talk to you about where we are. We're still working towards December. My contractor tells me somewhere around the 12th or the 15th, and we're not going to go in there obviously until we get a permit for residency from the town, which he expects that we will get by the mid part of December. And then I hope to become a non-nomad and get back to my home. So that's really where we are. I would like to make a suggestion if I could. I've been sitting here thinking about it, and you graciously extended the time frame, and I don't think I need a time frame extension. What I'd like to suggest is, if everything goes, and we'll have an occupancy permit in December, and we'll move in. That's great. I don't think you really need to talk to me, or I need to talk to you. But if I don't have it by January 1st, I promise to come back in front of the board and tell you what happened. And obviously there's nobody in there, no occupancy permit, so nobody lives there. Contractors might think they live there, but.
Could I ask what the violations were?
Sure, there was a lot of mess in the house.
Okay.
And there was a
In the
concern too.
So
The
there's
house
a
was-
mess-
the house
there's a
was
mess gone.
uninhabitable?
The problem
There's a me-
there was a problem with
Hey.
potential mold because the fire department came in and sprayed it, which they're supposed to do. But then the insurance company just they were very hard to get to move. So it went from October 30th until I would say the beginning part of March before the insurance company finally settled or, ponied up what they were supposed to do. So we didn't even get a chance to winterize the house until January. And fortunately, it was a very mild December and November, so that did not become an issue. But the major part with the mold was just that, there was a lot of water sprayed and nobody was allowed to come in and remit the mold. Normally, that's done right after you spray. Within a week, somebody comes in to remit the water so it doesn't create mold, but that didn't happen.
So I'm just jumping into this. Sorry if my ignorance, but so is
You're in time.
is it
You're in time.
so is the mess gone now and you're just rebuilding the house, or is the mess still in the house?
Oh no, that's been gone since the insurance company did clean it out. I'd say the mid part of January.
So the house is empty?
Well, the house is empty. They cleaned out all the mess and then we knocked everything down. We took out all the walls, we took out all the ceilings. So it was just studs. That's all that
Okay,
was
so
there. Studs.
So the violation was the mess. So if the mess is gone, what are we waiting for now? The mold?
No, the mold was remitted as soon as that's why it was cleared out. So you could see where and if there was mold, which there was some, but not a lot.
So I'm just trying to understand what violation is still existing.
A day.
Well, I don't want to elaborate on the violations. I sent the order letter. I included it in the Board of Health packet that I sent to the board members, so you can find the information in the packet.
Okay.
But I would like to refrain from elaborating on the violations.
Sure,
right now.
sure.
But
They still have it.
it's still
Right,
under
sorry.
our jurisdiction. It's still there's a Board of Health role in this still currently, correct?
Correct. So the house was deemed uninhabitable, and for them to move back in the house, we have to make sure it's fit for human habitation, and go from there. So they have to take care of everything, call us back. We have to go there, do our inspection. If everything is good.
So it's not simply a matter of the building permits. It's also, there needs to be a public health sign off as well.
Right.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, Sal,
I'll look.
Sal, part of that's just the use and occupancy permit. But once that's satisfied, then we're satisfied, essentially.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
All
So
right, so
essentially, what Mr. McAllister is asking for
with
at the moment.
certificate of occupancy, we're going to agree that you won't hear from me again unless I'm not in my house by January 1st, because I have to get a certificate of occupancy, and I assume Department of Health signs off on that kind of thing too. So you will be satisfied when I have a certificate of occupancy. Okay?
Correct. So you won't get the certificate of occupancy without us signing off on it.
Right. So, and my contractor assures me that he'll be done in time so that we'll have that by the mid part of December. That's all I'm saying. If I have it in the mid part of December, then you probably don't need to talk to me anymore. But if I don't, I come back in January and tell you why I don't have it or what I'm doing to get it. Because I'm sure we'll have it, because it's basically the house is being completely rebuilt, except for the outside.
Right.
So,
And there's nobody in. Oh, sorry.
Since we extended this process through December 31st of this year, and since there's no specific request to extend beyond that, I don't think there's any need for a vote. This is really more of an update.
Right. Okay.
And
all done?
so, if there,
I want to thank you all for giving me a chance to tell you where we are.
great. Appreciate your time, Mr. McAllister.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, Nancy's my wife.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of figured something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be in contact with you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is Community Health Improvement Plan next steps. And, I think in my mind, we've completed this lengthy 18-month process. I don't know if, Sophie and Sal have had a chance to read it. It's a pretty long document, but basically evaluated the health needs of Reading, came up with several priorities, and outlined a series of strategies of how to achieve those goals over the next 5 years. And so we're at this point now where, okay, well, what's next? And how do we do this? And so I wanted to just have a general discussion and get thoughts from the board about how to move forward. You know, I can tell you, you know, I have some ideas. Maybe I'll start with those, and we can kind of then open it up for discussion. Number one, I don't think this can be easily done with our current staffing, i.e., a day. And Cassidy, you know, if you've read the document, there's a lot to be done, a lot of planning, a lot of organizing, and follow through. That even in a fully staffed health department, I don't think there's typically a lot of room to be able to execute on these without some additional help. So first of all, I'm thinking we need some kind of individual whose job, it may not be full-time, whose job is to drive the agenda of the health improvement plan under the direction of a day and a steering committee. And also potentially, as Jamie points out, you know, be able to write grants for additional funds to help support this effort. A second, I think we need to put together a steering committee as recommended in the report, and realizing that this is not just the health department, but this is a lot of town and community entities that would be important to have them participate and be involved in order to be able to achieve what we're trying to achieve with this plan. And so putting together a steering committee like that is a piece of work, and managing that steering committee over time is a
Rick, you froze if you can hear us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
If you can't hear us, we'll wait. You're lucky. You froze, Rick, with a nice face, because I usually freeze with bad expressions and then staff.
manager, whatever the term is.
Oh, there he
We
is.
need.
You froze for a
thirdly, I
while,
think-
Rick.
Did
Rick,
I blank out?
You froze. Yeah, you froze for a
Oh, I'm
while.
sorry. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not in my usual place. I have my 3 grandchildren downstairs, and if I was using my usual computer, they would be in the background. So sorry about that. Raise your hand if I blank out, so I know I can pause. Thirdly, I think there needs to be a lot more communication. We've been living this for a long time, but I don't know if the community really knows what the output has been. And I'm a little concerned about communicating a lot until we have some resources and infrastructure to actually drive the process, because otherwise you communicate, you raise expectations, and then nothing happens because we don't have the resources. But I think some communication strategy is important. So I'll stop there. And those are my thoughts of, what we would need, not exactly how we would get those resources. I'd be open to suggestions as well on that, and whatever else we need to really move this forward.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I was wondering if there's any potential overlap maybe with the other towns that are part of the IMA. So have the other surrounding towns that we're in the same contract with done a CHNA? And is there any sort of overlap? Like, I'm thinking specifically the need for increasing transportation, where we could maybe potentially use some of those funds, or we could pool together funds, so it would benefit on a more regional basis rather than just our town.
That's a good point. And I don't know the answer to that, but that's something we should look into. Because there may be, presumably they don't have the 100.
You froze, Rick.
See a lot of waving going on tonight.
There must be some gaming going on.
Yeah,
Gonna say the bandwidth.
A little bit of lag.
yeah.
And up all the bandwidth.
All right.
My suggestion was so good, it left him speechless, so.
It's-
There you
I think
go.
it was. I had a feeling that was going to happen. All right.
Yep.
Right.
So Day, what is the capacity right now of your office?
We're at 20%.
And is that changing in the near future by any chance? Has there been
It
movement
appears
somewhere?
that, yeah, it looks like it's going to change very soon.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
And I'm
Oh.
excited. And I will be sharing that during the monthly report.
Oh, great.
Okay. Well, that's good. That helps.
Absolutely.
Rick,
Yeah.
we didn't talk while you were frozen or gone, but I was thinking what Sophie raised is actually a great question to include in the kind of scope of an individual if we're talking about doing that. I know every community does community health needs assessments at different stages, and who knows where they are. But I think those looking for those opportunities would be a logical step. Who are the other partners that we could identify? So, and that's, that alone is a fair amount of work. So I think it would be
I
interesting
think
if we could find a body.
what she raised was part of the recommendations in the CHIP plan.
Mhm.
So hopefully, once we get a steering committee together, we can look at things like that. But we need to get a group together to coordinate and execute the CHIP plan.
Mm-hmm.
Have
So
you
you-
envisioned what that group looks like? Sorry to cut you off, Carrie.
No, same question, Kevin. Sorry, you go.
Have you envisioned what the group looks like and what you want to have it consist of a day?
I would have to talk to Dr. Lopez about that, and and everybody else, and then we'll go from there. Definitely, somebody from the board should be on the committee.
Sure.
I would say somebody from coalition should be there.
Sure.
Somebody from the senior center should be there.
What about fire and police?
Absolutely. If they want to be part of it, why not?
School system,
School system.
recreation department.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're getting a lot of
Media partners.
heads in the room now.
Right.
Yeah.
Good thing, bad thing sometimes.
If I may, is this something, a day that you've had an opportunity to talk with the town manager or the assistant town manager about how this might fit with staff? Or are we not at that stage yet?
We're not at that stage yet. I would want to take care of the department first before talking about staffing the CHIP plan and things like that. Let's take care of our department first.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about just the formation of the steering committee, not even thinking about adding the body part, but like we want a steering committee and then we'd need a body. Sorry, two separate questions.
Yeah, we're still working on it.
Got it.
We'll get there.
You know,
Do-
ideally, you know, Jamie mentions these in the report, but ideally having some kind of description a day in your spare time, some kind of description of the project manager roles and a description of what the steering committee, like all the names we just mentioned, you know, who might be on the steering committee and what the roles of the steering committee might be, would be a good start to make concrete, you know, what needs to, what this might look like. Because if you were explaining it, for instance, to the town manager, he might have some hard time getting his hands around it. But I'd ask Carrie, before she asks a question, you know, I wonder with these chars and chips, sort of in general, how, you know, are they usually successfully implemented over time and with a lot of outcomes? Because I look at our 2015 one that's been on our website for a long time, which was a 5-year plan and probably would have been updated if we didn't hit with COVID. But I didn't see necessarily a lot of the results from that. So I don't know, sort of in the public health world, you know, do people usually, do towns and communities usually achieve most of that?
Right. So in my experience, which, and I certainly have worked with every community in the Commonwealth, but I mean, a community health needs assessment is a big undertaking. You know, not every community certainly has done so. Communities out in the western part of the state, you know, have not. Maybe there's been a regional community health needs assessment. You know, and that's part of the reason for the shared services work, is to try and get folks to a place where they could think about conducting such a thing. So that's the first part of it. The second part is, you know, part of the success is having a part of the success, the ability to succeed is having a chip, is having a well-constructed chip with, you know, reasonable kind of goals and paths to maybe how you go about achieving them. But, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, it's a undertaking where you, your director or your board, or, you know, if it's a commissioner, they're kind of thinking, what staff do I have that I could use for this? Or what staff do I need to add to support this? Because, you know, it's a long-term project that requires its own driver. And, you know, what we know is that if you don't staff things, things don't happen. So I think that, you know, to the extent that we could find, you know, I don't know if there are extra hours of staff of, you know, available, that there might be some alignment. If there's a project manager in another department that we could look at. I don't know if there's budget that we can access. You know, I mean, so I guess I have more questions than I have answers now. I think that the with staffing, it's certainly achievable. And if you look back to what we did with our own internal department assessment, and that's kind of a royal we, because that I give lots of credit to a day, but you know, it was focused over time. How do we chip away and get these things done? But those were fundamental functions for the department. These are fundamental things for the entire community. And I think figuring out how to collaborate with other departments and find some sort of staffing commitment is really important to its success. I don't know what the hours are, you know, I mean, I suppose you could do maybe 10 hours a week, 10 hours a month. I don't know. I'd need to see the scope.
So I just want to be honest with everybody. I'm going to try to be as diplomatic as possible, but you know, we town employees, we're in so many committees and so many meetings that sometimes you just forget the identity of what exactly you're trying to achieve, because we see each other all the time. We're in this group, that group, and then everything gets lost. So my recommendation will be to staff this steering committee with dedicated, residents that really want to see, a change in the community. Staff are kind of burnt out. It's the same staff, whether you go to the police department or fire department, coalition, same people. We're on so many different committees that, we're just a little bit burnt out. So if we can rally some dedicated residents, I think that would be the route to go.
And I thank you for that perspective, and I hear that, and I'm also going to wince a little bit because I worry about just the capacity. I see you nodding your head, Kevin. The capacity for volunteers to see it through, and some of these things are, it's a little sensitive to have a volunteer directing staff activities. I'm not saying it's the wrong idea, Aday, but there are some challenges to that, and I'll say it's kind of like we used to say. People say, "Oh, we'll get a student," and boy, students are awesome, but students are a lot of work. And I was a student, and I know I was a lot of work, and I regularly go back to the folks who supported me and say thank you. But so I don't know, but it sounds like you, Aday, don't think there's a lot of opportunity for additional staff positions, and that you think that our best bet is to have to find some willing volunteer who would run a project for the town for a couple of years.
Correct. They don't have the final say, and they shouldn't have the final say, but at the same time, they're helping to drive, the goals we're trying to achieve. So that's the way I see it.
You also
My
have to get
opinion.
someone who has a skill set to be able to do this. This is not, this kind of project management is not something someone can come off the street, even if they are energetic and good, well-meaning, can do it. Because I've been in a large organization. I know how complicated these kinds of projects can be. You have to be extremely organized, and you have to have project management skills. Kevin,
Exactly.
Kevin, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think all the way around this. So it seems like, the first step is to establish that steering committee, and their first role really is to look at exactly the implementation part of this. It sounds like we're going to need dedicated staff, which is increase on the budget. And the question would be that I would have is that a permanent position? If we look at it every 5 years, by the time you get this implemented, are you right back to implementing a new one and you need that staff going on? Or is this more like we need someone for the next year to come in part-time, whatever it might be, a week and go after it? So I think the first part is, who's done this? Go talk to that group, find out what exactly it looks like. What are the hours? Where's the pool that you pull the person from? I don't think, I'm not going to speak for town meeting, but obviously we can go before town meeting and ask for additional funding if it's needed, or we can try to make it part of staff vacancy now as part of the incoming staff member. Try to include that as their role and responsibility. Maybe you entice somebody that's interested in public health to say, "Oh, I get to come in and implement the plan for the town as part of my role." So I think I'm with Kerry. I hesitate to have volunteers do it. I get what you're saying, though, because we're not going to get it up and running if we don't get somebody in that position ASAP, and that would be a volunteer, and that'd be fine for the interim. But I would think the more prudent way is to, as you're doing that, proceed to try to either fully staff your department and add this on as one of those, part of their role and responsibility. That would be my first want. And so I don't know, how that works. You could tell me that, but that's the way I would see was be the best path forward. And if you can't do that, then just get somebody part-time specific for just this.
Sal, did I see your hand up earlier or?
Yeah, I was going on the same line as Kevin was saying. I just wanted to add one thing with the volunteers, not to beat a dead horse, but it's very hard to keep volunteers, held accountable for any type of project. There's no monetary, compensation for what they're doing. It's just, obviously to volunteer, and if they wanted to drop it at some point, we have no, recourse of any type. So I would more focus on trying to get funding from town meeting for, somebody to drive this. That's
I
it.
think having a couple volunteers who are energetic from the community to participate in the steering committee.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think the steering committee has to have people who are in positions who could actually take on, if we want to do something in the schools, you want to have someone from the schools there who actually can then go and drive that effort, has some authority to be able to move things.
Right.
And that should be probably the majority of the steering committee, but having a couple community volunteers who are enthusiastic couldn't hurt.
Right. Definitely not leading the charge though.
Right.
If I may, I'm kind of thinking what we've been talking about, Kevin, sort of is there a part-time position? Is it I'd be interested to so is there a need in the town for cross-departmental, because this is, while this is in health, we identified things that are priorities for the community that we need all sorts of other departments engaged in and participating in. I'm wondering, is there a need for kind of some project management skills that would support things like this, that is worth raising with the I guess with the town manager? I'm not sure who the town manager, assistant manager, in terms of what are the staffing needs, because maybe somebody else in another department has kind of a similar thing, and we could have a combined success, or do we do a small procurement and try and get a contract for a agency to run? I know in one of my departments, there are a couple of contractors who do this, right? They would kind of run a project and maybe take that on. So if there wasn't a desire to add to, is there a small amount of money to procure services that way? But
that was essentially what Jamie did. She was the project manager for the
Right.
health needs assessment and the CHIP plan. So
Right.
that was what we did. We can get an independent contractor to help us out, but we need funding for that.
right. Well, and maybe it's not someone it's not necessarily someone at Jamie's rate, because this is implementation work as opposed to, strategy and thought work. So it's a little bit less, but speculating.
That, that's a thought, because to some degree, we don't know how much time something like this would take. If we hired a consultant for 6 months to get things rolling, and develop the project and develop the plans and develop the performance metrics and work the steering committee and so forth, by the end of that time, we might have a very good sense of, what it's going to take for an employee to be able to do that, how much time and skills. So we could use the experience from a consultant for 6 months to understand really what we need in terms of, as Kevin pointed out, more long-term resource. It's a thought.
What
I
did
hear-
y'all do with the previous plan? Was that a day what you were saying there was a project director?
So the previous plan we had, when I got hired, I pretty much, implemented
Oh, okay.
a lot of it.
Yeah.
And the 2015 assessment, that was a whole different administration, different staff, different things that, you know, very, very different circumstances. So
Mhm.
not a lot to,
Replicate.
yeah, not a lot to
Yeah.
compare. Yeah.
Yeah.
The good thing about with Jamie, we had the ARPA funding, and we were able to use the funding to pay for her services. But now that the funding is dried up, we have about $15,000 left. I don't see how we're going
It's not going to buy you very much. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So I hear you loud and clear, Ade, that, you know, this is not something that existing staff can take on. Existing staff are stretched, are busy, are full. So, you know, we're taking that off the table is sort of what are the alternatives?
I think we should, I mean, there are a number of suggestions that came up in this discussion. I think we're going to be I mean, our priorities are getting an inspector and an active nurse and so forth. I think we need to think more about this, and this won't be the last discussion we'll have of this, and maybe formulate some proposals that we could bring back to the board for more discussion in the next meeting or two, as we sort of crystallize our ideas about this. I didn't expect that we were going to reach a conclusion, but I kind of got a sense of what people's thinking is, and that's helpful.
Mm.
So if there's no more comments, I think we could move on the agenda. Okay, per the town charter, we're supposed to vote for a chair and vice chair once a year in June and July, where we didn't have a meeting in July. So we need to do it today. And basically what we would do is anyone can nominate someone. We can start with the chair, nominate someone to be the chair. And once we have whatever names we have or name, we would take a roll call vote and just vote on those individuals. And then we would do the same process for the vice chair.
I nominate Richard
So-
Lopez, chair.
Second.
Okay, we have one nomination from me. Any else? Okay. So I heard a nomination. I heard a second. Roll call. Carrie?
Yes, but Rick,
Yes.
you don't sound happy.
I'm thrilled. I'm
You can't
thrilled.
decline, you know.
It keeps me busy. Let's see. Joan,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
thank you.
We
Okay,
appreciate
and yes.
you.
Yes.
You're so good at it.
I humbly accept your nomination and your vote. Thank you. And so
Could I just ask who the vice chair is?
the vice chair is Carrie
Okay.
and Carrie Donnell. And we are now open to nominations for a vice chair.
I nominate Kerry Donnell.
Second.
And okay, do we have any other nominations?
I wish I could nominate somebody.
Okay, roll call vote. I have a first and a second. Carrie,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
and Rick, yes. Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank you. And yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Rick. Thanks.
You do an excellent job.
You do, Rick.
Both.
Grateful for you. Thank
This is
you.
my first
Oh,
meeting. This is
thank
my
you.
first meeting, but I agree.
Thanks, Sal.
All right. With that piece of business, we'll move on to a day's monthly report.
All right, I'll try to make this brief. So as you all know, we're not fully staffed at this point. We're working at I'd say 30 to 40% capacity at this point. So we didn't do too many inspections in the month of July. We conducted 6 nuisance complaint inspections and 2 food complaint inspections. In terms of vacancies, we are currently interviewing for the nurse position. We have a few highly qualified individuals that applied. Things are looking promising, and I am hoping that we would have the position filled prior to the next Board of Health meeting.
Right.
Yeah, same thing for the health inspector position. We recently secured a competitive salary, and I'm very
Wow.
optimistic. Yes.
Excellent.
Didn't see that coming.
I didn't see it coming either, but I am optimistic that we would have the position filled prior to the next Board of Health meeting as well.
Excellent.
Yes,
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Jerry said, crossed fingers.
very happy about that. And then we've had a few highly qualified candidates that have applied as well. So we will begin interviewing next week. In terms of health presentations, Cassidy, can you put up the blood pressure screening? All right. No, the blood pressure screening.
Oh.
All right. Yeah, well, you can keep this. You can keep this. So let's see. On September 17th, from 6 p.m. to 6:45 p.m., there will be a community NACAN training hosted by the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support. This event will take place at the Reading Public Library. Registration is required, and you can use the link or scan the QR code to sign up for this event. If you're watching us right now on the TV, all you have to do is move your phone closer and scan the QR code, and you will be able to register for this event right away. All right. First Wednesday of each month, we hold a blood pressure screening event at the Pleasant Street Center from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And the only reason we can do this is because of the shared services grant. We have a shared services nurse that comes to the Pleasant Center to do the screenings for the seniors and anybody that walks in. It is a free event. Everybody is welcome to attend. Just walk in and get your blood pressure checked. Next flyer. Let's see, on November 14th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., we will be hosting a diabetes education presentation at the Pleasant Street Center. And again, we won't be able to do this without the shared services grant. So I'm very grateful and appreciative of being part of the collaborative. Shared services nurse Liana will be at this event. She will be the one presenting. It's a free event. Everybody is welcome to attend. Registration is required. All you have to do is call the phone number 781-942-6794. Let's see, we are working with the schools and also Shaw's Clinic to set up a date in September for our first flu COVID clinic of the season. I will keep the board updated, and I'll also inform the residents when we're ready. Let's see. Cassidy, can you put up the charts, the nursing charts? All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about the first box on top. So the week of July 29th to August 4th, we had 8 cases of COVID and 1 case of Lyme disease, and also 1 case of Haemophilus influenzae. All right. So pretty much what I did with this chart was to look at the trend from December 2023 to present. And if you look at the communicable diseases in Reading, you can see that COVID-19 peaked in January, and then that's the blue line. And then, we had another spike in July, and right now we are looking at a downward trend. Also, similarly, influenza peaked in January, and it's trending downwards at this point. There are other communicable diseases such as Group A, strep, and hepatitis B, pertussis. They remain constant. We've not really seen a significant jump. They're almost, negligible, almost. And then if we go to the vector disease in Reading, vector-borne diseases in Reading residents, you can see that we don't have a dengue fever in Reading, which is great. 1 case of HGA, and you can see that the Lyme disease, was trending upwards. It peaked around May, June, and now it's trending downwards. In terms of foodborne illnesses, there's no particular trend. Sometimes we get those, and sometimes we don't. And that's what the chart shows us in the foodborne illness in Reading residents.
Huh, let's hear it.
Also, let's see. In preparation for the fall season, we have ordered some test kits for free from the state of Massachusetts. They will be delivered sometime around the end of the month. The only issue that I have, or that I worry about, is that, our residents get used to picking up these test kits from the library and town departments, and, they're happy about it. But once we don't have them, then, they get really upset. So again, these are free. We pick them up when they're available. So, just putting that out there. So if the residents come and we don't have them, they shouldn't be upset. They can really go to CVS and, buy some. Fall season is around the corner. We urge our residents to continue taking precautions and get vaccinated if they haven't. Wash your hands regularly, cover your coughs and sneezes, keep your distance. If you're around someone who's sick, wear a mask if needed. Stay home when sick. And that concludes the monthly report.
If I could ask 2 questions. One is, can you just remind me where we are with sharp disposals? And we stopped doing drug, or the police, the town stopped doing drug disposals. But I thought, are we doing sharp disposals?
Yes,
at
we
town
are.
hall?
Yes, we
Yeah.
are. So we moved the sharps container to the town hall, and now you can just walk to the town hall, go to the basement, and drop off your sharps.
Okay, great. And I'll just make a note that we received it in our packet some feedback, actually a PowerPoint from one of the residents regarding a rat problem. And in general, that issue still exists across the town. Again, we're somewhat limited, obviously, without even an inspector to do much. But I do think we need to revisit it over the next couple months. Perhaps when we have an inspector, perhaps come up with a comprehensive plan and get that funded to be able to, address this because we are getting, a low level of daily calls around, rodent sightings, which is disturbing. I don't think it's out of control, but it shouldn't be happening, and there are ways to take care of it. So we haven't really talked about that in about 6 months, but probably that should be on the agenda and then sometime in the fall to look at this. And we will do something to address the particular complaint that was forwarded to the board. Yes, Joan.
Is there a requirement that the dumpsters be closed every night or locked every night? Does that exist
Absolutely.
yet? Or can we do that? Or someone do that?
There is a requirement.
There is.
It's like a stop sign. There's a stop sign right there. You have to stop. But if there's nobody monitoring the stop sign,
Exactly.
then So yes,
Exactly.
there is a requirement to make sure your dumpsters are weathertight.
Right.
They're not exposed.
I know in some parts of New Hampshire, they have bears. So everybody's very motivated to keep their their trash locked up. Well, obviously we don't have bears down here, but they need some sort of motivation to keep everything buttoned up.
Correct.
Just on that point, Ade, it is possible if and it's frequently a food facility, restaurant or what have you, if they don't follow that, is it possible to actually fine them monetarily?
Absolutely, it is, but I would have to look at a ticketing system because sometimes when you find people, it doesn't go directly to the business. It goes to the property owner, the person renting the space to them.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what the issue is. It doesn't achieve the goal we're trying to achieve. But I would look at how we can make sure that whoever we're citing is who gets the violation and not somebody else. So we're working on that. It's going to take a while, but we'll get there.
Okay, thank you.
If-
Any other questions? Yep,
Yeah.
Carrie?
Anybody else before me? Two questions. Well, maybe one. So first, worth reminding folks, worth reminding businesses, please secure your dumpsters in the evening. Help participate in this effort to diminish the rat population. Do we still have, though, Ade, that contract that we put in place? We met with someone and shifted from a rat poison to a birth control. Is that still in place?
Yes, it is. And, I'm thinking of doing that on a larger scale rather than just, the park. We need to do it on a larger scale, but we have to get buy-in from everybody because it costs a lot of money. Also, there's a lot of digging going on in town, and it will be nice for us to get notified so that we can notify the residents as well. So I'm working on a bunch of things on a comprehensive plan, which would include DPW and facilities. So for example, I know that they have a street opening permit. I just found out they have a street opening permit. And essentially what happens is, National Grid wants to dig somewhere. They just go to the, engineering department, apply for a permit, and they start digging. So I asked if we could be a reviewer of that permit, and we could put some requirements prior to digging. And if they don't meet those requirements, then they won't be able to get the permit, and then there will be no digging.
Mhm.
They'll only be able to dig if they follow the protocols that we recommend or provide. So I'm working on different aspects. So for example, we have we have a bunch of abandoned properties, dilapidated buildings in town. I know Reading is an affluent, community, but we have, places that are not so nice. So we need to create some type of a, abandoned property regulation. Usually the select board does that, but if we're not able to achieve that, then we can go through a board of health regulation. So essentially what that does is, if you have an abandoned property, you register every year with the health department, you pay the fee, which is about, in Somerville, we put like a $500 fee on it. You pay the fee, and then in the summertime, we help maintain the premises, we make sure the lawn is cut, we make sure, if you need to board anything up, all those things are done. And then we don't have neighbors calling, oh, there's an abandoned property on the corner of Haven Street and Main Street. It's been there for 10 years and we have raccoons and rats. We won't have to deal with all those things if we have, an abandoned property regulation. So there are so many things we can put in place. We can coordinate with DPW in terms of digging. We want to move from poison-based to, you can't kill the rats fast enough. So
Right.
what do? You need to reduce, their multiplication, just reduce it. So there's so many factors that fall into this, and we need, support from everybody. We all need to come together and tackle this problem.
And I'll just say, I know from my experience working in other communities, there are rats in the nicest communities and the less nice communities, right? It's not the rats live here just like the squirrels and everything else. So, it's not that there's some problem in our community. I hope nobody's thinking
Right.
that, it's a factor kind of everywhere. And I love the things you described today, the kind of the proactive solutions and figuring out how to bring those and fit those to Reading, because certainly we're not quite as large as Somerville, we're not quite as dense, but seeing it's a great starting point of how do you do that and what can we do to benefit the community. So thank you. And I just will close and say thank you to you and Cassidy, because I know running short staff really hard. So thank you guys for persevering and keeping your great attitudes and your great service for us. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you. And then just one more thing. We're going to be meeting with DPW and engineering next week. And the idea is that, do you guys remember the map, the rat map we had?
Yeah.
So yes, so we want to overlay the map with the construction map DPW and engineering has. By doing that, we can better figure out, what's going on. Are we seeing rats based on construction projects? Are we seeing it based on restaurant dumpsters? So we need to be able to identify the source before we can mitigate. If we don't know where, the source is, we're just going to be throwing money away everywhere. So we're meeting next week, and hopefully we'll be able to achieve that.
Great.
Good. So any other final comments or suggestions? Otherwise, I'd make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I thought we wanted to stay all night. Gee, there was a pause there. Okay, I'll take Kevin's second. Roll call. Carrie,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Sal.
Yes.
Great. And Rick, yes. So thank you all for your time, your service, and we'll see you in September as the song goes.
Recording stopped.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Here.